With growing inflation and out-of-control gas prices, President Biden continues to see a downward spiral with his job approval ratings. A newly released poll from NBC News reveals just 39% of Americans approve of the president's job performance, 56% disapprove. Joining us right now, Dr. Mark Caleb-Smith, director of the Center for Political Studies at Cedarville University. Dr. Smith, good morning to you. Great to see you.
Good morning to you.
So what do you make of the president's approval ratings hitting this new low, and how does this compare to presidents in the past?
Yeah, it's certainly bad news for the Democratic Party, no matter how we try to spin this. I mean, as the face of the party, it's not good for his approval ratings to be sinking at this point. When you compare him to previous presidents, those who are successfully reelected, for example, like Barack Obama, like George W. Bush or Bill Clinton, his numbers are well below those. He's much closer to presidents like Trump and Jimmy Carter in the low 40s, high 30s with approval ratings. So I think this is bad news for the White House and bad news for the Democrats.
So while we see his approval rating going down, Democrats' interest actually in the midterms is going up now. It actually went up from 50% in March to 61% right now. And it's not just the economy, obviously, that's driving these voters to the polls. What other issues do you see being front and center for the Democratic Party?
Yeah, I think if the Supreme Court follows through and overturns Roe versus Wade, as it seems that it very well could, abortion is going to be a defining issue for these primary elections coming up, as well as potentially for the midterms in the fall. And I think also other cultural issues should come into this. And so things like immigration, race relations, crime, I think those will all take their place. But I think in the end, they'll probably still pale in comparison to economic interests.
The primary elections this week truly a test of President Biden's influence or lack thereof in the Democratic Party. What did the outcomes of these elections in Idaho, Kentucky, North Carolina, Oregon, Pennsylvania, what do they reveal about where the party is at the moment? And then on the flip side, if you could also reflect a little bit about former President Trump and the impact he's having on the candidates he endorsed on the Republican side.
Yeah, I think these elections certainly reflect to a degree the leaders of each party. Within the Democratic Party, you still see this struggle between sort of the establishment traditional wing represented by President Biden and then the more progressive left wing of his party. And I think right now that struggle looks like it's still playing out. And so it's hard to know who's winning at the moment. Within the Republican Party, Donald Trump is ascendant still. He still has firm control of the party. And I think that's pretty obvious based on most of the results that we're looking at. But I want to caution listeners and viewers. You have to always be careful, I think, from drawing really hard conclusions from these campaigns. Senate elections, House elections, gubernatorial elections, these are still largely local elections to some extent, and they're driven by local issues. And so Biden and Trump are going to play a role, but so are local concerns.
So considering the president's low approval rating, should we expect to see him on the campaign trail? Are Democrats opting just to not have the president publicly support them because of his approval ratings?
That's a great question, and I think it really is a hard question for Democratic candidates right now. I suspect very few people would turn down the president if he says, I want to come and campaign with you wherever it might be. At the same time, I think most of them would look at that invitation and say, as good as it could be for fundraising or other things, it probably isn't going to have the kind of effect that I would like. And so I think President Biden will be there. He will be campaigning, but I really don't think that his influence is going to be decisive.
And very quickly, I want to ask you about this talk of this massive red wave across the country for the midterms. We keep hearing about this. How many seats do you think could be gained in the House and Senate if that were to happen?
I think we're looking at 25 to 35 probably House seats for Republicans, which would be enough for them to take control. The Senate's more complicated. I think it's going to depend on who gets these nominations in places like Pennsylvania. And so I think the Democrats have a little bit better chance of hanging on to the Senate, at least as of right now.
All right. Dr. Mark Caleb-Smith, thank you for joining us here on the National Desk this morning. We appreciate it.
Thank you.